Welcome guys, in this video I will show you how to create a control panel for the users built with Svelte. Probably the best video I have found on YouTube so far. I hope you guys like it. You will see how you can actually add users, you can delete, you can undo if you regret deleting a user. All these will be built with a really special technique that I like to use. I don't want to use arrays here. Everything will be JSON object based, meaning that I will not have positions in the arrays like position 0 or 1 or 2. Everything will be built based on JSON keys. It is a technique that most developers don't even know it exists. So I really hope you learned something from this video, and please, in exchange of that, I hope that you will like the video, you will give me some comments, subscribe, get notifications, because that's actually what inspires me to build something for you guys. So here is the demo. Let me just quickly do a refresh. This is what we're going to build. If we change the name A that we have here to AA, you can see it is hooked, it's linked to the store that we have here. B, the same thing, B changes, C changes here. If I want to delete a user, I have the option to undo because I regret doing that. So for now, we just delete B. I let it happen, or let it pass 3 seconds. I will add the user, and as soon as I click on add, you can see how the cursor is blinking here. So if you look at this name that's empty because this user doesn't have a name, now I add the this, and then I get the name for the this. If I add a new user, it's blinking there. I want to delete, delete, delete. Wait 3 seconds. The users are deleted. The last one, delete. So this is what we are going to build, guys. Let's get started right away. Over here, I have created a folder. You can create a folder anywhere in your computer. Let's go to the Svelte website, Svelte.js, and you have to go to this svelte.dev. And I will just go to the REPL, and I will click the download button. This is what I always do. There are many other options to do this with npx, but I don't like doing that, not for now at least. So I just extract what I just got from this REPL download button here, copy all this, and then I will place all these inside this folder here. Right now this folder has these 2 files, but those are just for my presentation. So in your computer they should be empty. So I go to Svelte projects, and this folder here is actually that one, so I just paste that in there. So right now I have all my Svelte files in place. I have this app.svelte, which contains this data that I don't need. Now, before we continue, let's open the terminal. I actually expect that you have Node.js installed in your computers, guys. So if you hit nodejs.org, you have to download Node.js and install it in your computers. So over here, I will say npm install, and this will just grab all the necessary files from the internet and place here, somewhere here, an extra folder that will contain the code for Svelte. Let's wait a few seconds, and we have the node modules ready. All right, I no longer need the terminal for now. So this app.svelte is the entry point. If you don't know much about Svelte, I will put a link underneath this video so you can go and watch my other videos where I explain what the src folder contains, what the public folder contains, and all that. So if you are new to it, just go and click on my videos underneath. Over here, we just create a simple global CSS. Let's do some margins. Let's set up the padding. That will also be 0px. Let's set the box sizing to be border box. Try to use always auto completion here. I will set up the body of the page, body, and it will have a width of 100%. The overflow will be hidden, but actually I want the overflow on the y-axis to be shown. Overflow y, and that will be a scroll overflow. Let's set the font size. I actually don't care if you style this perfectly, but just for you to have something that looks like this that I show you just before, like so. So let's continue with the body and let's leave it there until I actually start up the whole application. So go to the terminal, open the terminal, and let's do npm run dev. So this should run this. Okay, it's already running on this demo that I show you here. So let me just kill that demo so I can start this npm run dev. Right. So npm run dev does this. I have my local host listening to port 5000. There's nothing in there. I don't need the terminal now. The server is running, so I just close it. So over here we have the global CSS. For now, let's just end up with a font weight to be 300. All right, save it. The CSS is working fine. Let's go now to the app.svelte. That's the entry file. There's nothing in this file. I'm just going to import here users and each specific user because we're building this user panel. So over here, we're going to create a new file that will be a component, call it user.svelte. It has to be capitalized and it has to have the Svelte extension. This is going to be a user for all the users. So we'll have the script here, the style here, and the DOM elements will come here. I usually like to give some spaces so you can actually see what is what. Now we copy this, place it there. So this is the blueprint. This is the general style for every component that I use. So I copy all of it, save it, and I'm going to create the user component. In a bit, it will all make sense once I start filling this up with data. So I create the user.svelte. Sorry guys, this here should have been the users because this will manage all the users. And now I need to create the individual user.svelte component. All right, and then I paste what I just copied from the users inside the user, and I have this ready. I also need to have the data stored somewhere. So inside the src, I'm going to create a new file, call it data.users.js. This is not an Svelte component. This will just contain the data. So what I'll have to do here is import, and now we're okay, it's still recording. So I'm going to import writable, because I'm creating a store. I'm creating, let's call it the database, which is just running on JavaScript on RAM. So I am going to import this from Svelte store. And I'm going to create here a variable. So this variable will be a variable that other components can write or read from it. So this will be called the users, and that's going to be writable. Again, look at the other videos if you don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just creating a variable that other components can interact with it. And here comes the weird part, which is actually quite amazing. So if you watch the video all the way to the end, you're going to realize how this technique is very unique to what I do. Most coders have never seen this, but I love doing this, so I avoid playing with arrays. So I think it's time to teach you this technique, guys. So over here I have a JSON object, which most of you will have an array, but I don't. And I'm just going to hard code a few users. I will start calling it ID 111. This will be the key. I just do the ID 111 so you know that's for the user. And over here I will set up a JSON object. The ID of the object will be also 111. And the name of the object, of the user actually, is going to be just the letter A. So that's my first user. I'm going to copy this, paste it, and I'm going to change this ID to 222. this ID will be 323, and over here the ID will be 222, and this will be 323. The name will be B, and the name will be C. I save it. You will not see any changes there, but this is my, let's call it, database. It will all make sense once I code the whole thing. So now let's go to the users, let's go to the app, because the app is going to import users. So we're going to say import users from, and we're going to take it from the users component with extension .svelte. Once we have the users, that's a variable. I'm just going to use the users variable right in there. So inside the users, for now, I will just create a div. I will give it an ID. The ID will be users, and the just ID is given there so I can style it. And then I will write users here, so we can see the word users popping up there. So this is everything we need from the app.svelte. We import users. Let's concentrate now on the users component. So over here, the users component is going to use each individual user, and it's also going to fetch the data from this file called data-users. So let's import in each individual user, because we will be using that. And this will be imported from the user.svelte. And we will also import this store, this here, whatever is in there. And if you pay attention to this variable name called users, that's the variable we want to use. So over here, we're going to import the variable users, and this will be imported from, and we're going to import it from the data-users.js. I save. I don't see any bugs here. It reloaded fine, so everything is working as expected. So let's do a quick test. Over here, when I want to display each individual user, let's go to the user component, and let's just create here a div with the class user, and over here we are going to write user. So hopefully we see 3 user words right there. So we go here, and we are going to create an each loop. We open and we close the for each loop. And here comes the tricky thing. If you are playing with an array, you will point to the array, and then you will get it as, and then you will select that as something, as, let's say, user. So if this was an array of users, you will get each individual user. But remember, we are not playing with an array. We're actually playing, let's call it coding, we're not really playing with a JSON object. So to loop through a JSON object, this is what you do. You say object.keys, and then we're going to loop through this object here, the users object. Since this is a variable that comes from a different component, it comes actually from this store, to point to it, I need to do the $sign in front of it. So this will be the users. And then I will grab each of these users as, and pay attention to this part here. That's what we're pointing to. Whatever I grab is never going to be this object directly. It's actually going to be the key of the object. So when I loop through this JSON object, what I get out is the key. So over here, I will get the key as the key. And then I will call each of my user component. So I have 3 users now. Over here, I have the key. Just to demonstrate this, if I do key, let's see if I can show that. I get the key, and the key. All right. So far, there are no advantages of using the JSON object, but you will see what happens when I go to delete an object, for example. All right, since we have that inside the users, why not just display whatever we have in this store right away? So I'm going to put here a pre-tag. And over here, internally, I'm going to say JSON.stringify, and I'm going to stringify the store called users. The reason I'm doing this is so we can actually see the users there. It doesn't look good, so the Stringify function allows me to pass a null and a 2, for example, so I get it styled with a pretty style. So that's what I have so far for the users. Now the user here, the individual user, needs to have a key, because I need to reveal this. I have the key, and then I have the data for the user, which is a JSON object. So I'm going to create both of those variables there. I'm going to say that I want to export. I'm going to let the key. So that means that the user component can set a key for this individual user, and I'm going to let the user component set actually the data for this user. The data user will be all that, and the key variable will be this key. All right, so once we have the key and the user, let's quickly have a look of how we can populate this data. So over here, I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to display the key variable. I save it. Now we have this undefined, 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 because the users have not injected the key to this specific user. To do that, you look at the variable called key, and since you want to inject data in it, and the component that is calling the user is this user's component, so we say that the key is going to be this key that we have there. We save it, we have the keys for the users. We also need to inject the user JSON object. So we go to this users component, and then we're going to inject that key. So we say the users variable coming from the user component is going to be, and then we have to inject the object. The object itself comes from the user's object, JSON object, and we need to point to the key. This is pretty advanced, guys, for some of you, so you need to have some experience in coding to understand what I'm doing here. Walk through, I'm saying go to the user's object, which is all this, and then I'm saying point to the key, which is probably this key, and as soon as I point to this key, this is extracted from memory, or that is coming from memory. And then whatever comes from memory, which is a JSON object, I put it inside the user variable, which is this user variable there. Since I have done that, then I can actually put the name of it, of the user, and that's going to be in a text box. So I'm going to say that the value of it equals the user object dot name. I save, I get the ID, I get the name, and I'm going to do now the delete button. Now, if you remember the presentation that I have here, you can see that when I click on the delete, it turns into an undo for 3 seconds. So this is a button that has 2 states. It's actually displaying the trash can, or it's displaying the undo. So that's what I'm going to build now. To do that, I will need an if statement. So I'm going to create here an if statement. If, and then I'm going to close the if statement. And I also need the else, because I have these 2 states on the bottom. If, and remember that I can undo, so I'm going to create a variable actually, and I'm going to call it undo. Let me just quickly scroll up. And I'm going to say let undo equals to false. Because whenever I create this user, I am not in the undo state. I only get there once I have clicked on the delete button. So let's call this and let's do the undo here. So we say if not undo, that means that if undo is true, I'm going to create a button here. and the button is going to say just the delete. I use the trash can. So if we go to Emojipedia, that I usually like to do to make this a little bit nicer, we take the waste basket, wrong spell there, waste basket, copy it, and then I just throw that inside that button. Let me close this and let me save it. Okay, so that's the trash can. So if we do not have an undo, the undo is false, which is false because we have not clicked on this button, then we display just the trash can, or else we're going to display a button that says undo. This button is not shown because we're not in that state just yet. All right, so let me just quickly look what I have here. I have the key, I have the user, I have the false. Now, what happens if I change this name, and that name? You can see that this change did not affect my array that is not, sorry, my array, my JSON object that is there. It did not affect the changes, and I can actually see it displayed in this string that is there. So somehow I need to bind this to that. To do that, it's quite simple. We go to the user's main object, main component, and then we bind the user. This means that we are going to bind this user, this here, which comes from the store, to the individual user component, which is that one here. And if I make a change, I will not see any changes because this value here is hard-coded. Right now it's just displaying A, B, or C. I also need to bind that value. I'll walk you through this again once I get it working. So now I can change the A, I can change the B, I can change the C. What I'm saying is the value of the text box is going to be binded to the user object, which is that one. Since this user object came from here, and this user object is also binded, it's hooked to the store, then the changes here will affect the store there. So that's how it works. Now that we have that working, let's add a user. Why not? Let's do that. So to add a user, I'm going to create a button here in the users component, and it says add user. So over here, when I click on it, I want a new user to pop up. So I'm going to create an event listener on click. And then I want to call the function add user. And this is all happening inside the users component. Now this is breaking because I don't have that function created just yet. So I copy this and I'm going to create the function that will allow me to add a user. Const add user, that's a function. And remember that the user that I need to add must have a key and the value is a JSON object. So keep that in mind. So I'm going to create the ID, and the ID will be just math.floor, and then here we say math.random times 1000. This ID that I'm creating is basically that one there. And now I need to create a name for it. The name of the user will be empty because I don't have a name at the moment. I will be able to write and put a name here. So you can see here, I will be able to put the name there. So I don't have the name, so the name is empty. And then what I do, and here comes the fantastic thing. I say to the users store, I'm going to create the key. And this is the key. The key looks ID 1111. And you may be wondering why I put the ID in front of the 1111 or 2222. I explain that in a second. So for now, we'll say that it has to have the ID, and the ID is followed by the number ID that I get from this function there, and this will equals a JSON object. The JSON object has an ID and it has a name. Now I don't need to do ID followed by the D like so, because in JavaScript, in the new JavaScript at least, if you do this ID, which is that variable, it automatically creates the key call ID with the value of ID. And since I have the variable name and then I do name in there, it automatically creates the key call name with the value of name. So I save it. And now I have to go there. So if I go and say add a user, I can see that this is the new user added and the ID is 120. Now let me tell you why I put ID in front of it. Because JSON objects, if you have just numbers as the ID, you can see 1, 2, and 3 reflects 1, 2, and 3. But if this was, let's say, 4, you should expect to see 4, 2, and 3, but you will see 2, 3, and 4, because somehow Svelte is organizing these based on the numbers. So it takes the smaller number, puts it there, and then whatever is higher and whatever is higher in order. So to avoid that, I just discovered that. So I just put a string in front of it, and then it just respects the ordering of it. Okay, so those are my IDs. So for now, we just do 111 so you can see it happening. Let's go now to add a user again. If I click add a user, you can see that I don't get the cursor blinking there, and that's actually quite annoying. So to get the cursor blinking there, I need to somehow go to the user, and as soon as I create this input box, I need to put the focus on it. So I will say auto focus. I save. This is just highlighted. There's not really an error there. I add a user. Now you can see how it's blinking there. I would say that's the user D. If you pay attention down there, it is reactive. It's hooked. I add a new user. You can see the cursor is blinking, and then I do the C. Let's style this a little bit, guys, because it's looking horrible. So inside the user component, let's start with the users, which are all my users. Let's go in order. So for all my users, which is here, I will style it. And this is the beauty of Svelte. Whatever I put inside this component, it only affects this component. So I'm going to say that this is display grid. And let's create a grid. And this is for the users, right? So somehow I need to, let's do a grid gap. So the users are split with 10 pixels, and just so it doesn't touch the borders here of the page, I will do a padding of 10 px. Let's see if that helps. And this is styled by ID. You can see that I have the ID user, so I style by ID. So display grid users. All right, so the users are styled. Each user is divided with 10 pixels. Now let's style each individual user. So to style each individual user, we say that's the user. The user is also going to be display grid. And we are going to create a template, grid template columns. I should use auto-completion like so. And I have the ID, I have the input, and I have the trash can. So I have, let's say 10 fractions, 10 fractions, 10 fractions for now. And let's create also a grid gap here. So I have a space in between each element of 10 pixels. So that's my users. I can zoom in just a little bit more. It goes a little bit out of focus, just like so. All right. So it's a style, the input, I don't really like how it looks like. So I will say that the input, and I'm going to style this with you guys because it's important that when you show this in a job interview, or you create a project based on it, you actually know a little bit about what I have done here. So it helps you a lot. And then the width will be 100. The border will be 1 pixel, solid and gray. Don't make the borders too strong. Outline, I don't like the outline, so I always take the outline away. And the most important thing is that I don't like the letter touching the border, so I usually add a padding to the left, and now it's going to be 5 pixels. I have a little bit more space there. Now, this here, this space there, and the spaces you see everywhere is because of this fractioning. So I'm going to change this a little bit. I'm going to say that the ID is 3 fractions, the input box is 10, and then the trash can is 3 fractions. So I get this out. Okay, it's looking better. Now let's also style the button. Why not, now that we are here? In the button, which is that one, I don't want any outline. It's going to be none. I don't want paddings on the button. The border is going to be none. Let me just save it so you can see how it looks like. And let's create a border radius, just covering a little bit of CSS, guys, so you can actually go and play with it. And you can see when I put my cursor on top of it, it doesn't look like a hand. Well, if you're in a mobile phone, it doesn't really matter, but if you're in a computer, you need the hand, so it looks better. So that's why I set the cursor to be pointer. And now this bottom is too flat, so I'm going to add a padding of 5 pixels, so I get a little bit of a space in between. Okay, great. I have not styled that button there in the users, so why not? Let's quickly style it, and we're going to set that we set a height of 45 pixels on this button there. Okay, add a user, the working fine. Let's go to the final step. The edit is working, the adding is working. Let's go to the delete, and please guys, stay with me because here comes the really amazing part. How do I delete from a JSON structure? When I click on the delete button, because that's what I'm interested in now, let me just do this here on click. I'm going to call a function, and the function is called delete user. And when I click on this undo, I'm going to call a function, and the function is going to be called undo delete user. So that's my invention now. I have these two functions. Now it crashes because I don't have the functions built. I'm just calling it. So the style is out for now. I just minimize it, so I concentrate only on the functions. Const, that's the delete user function. It's an arrow function, and I'm going to copy this other function, const the undo delete user, which is a function, and I can save and it reloads again. Now here comes the beauty of it. When I delete a user, I'm going to say that I go to the undo equals true, because now I want to enable undo. I save, let's see what happens here. Now undo is enabled, you can see that there. But I told you that you get 3 seconds to regret the deletion, so I'm going to set a set timeout here. And the set timeout is a function that internally it takes an arrow function, an anonymous function, and the time will be 3 seconds. So this is my set timeout. And sorry guys, that's the function, and the time of it is 3 seconds. So when I'm going to start deleting, remember that I could click on undo. So as soon as 3 seconds have passed, I need to check if the user has regret the deletion or not. So I will say if undo is still true, and this will only run after 3 seconds. So I will check if the undo is still true. If the undo is true, here comes the beauty of it. If this was an array, I would have to look through it. But in this case, I don't need to do that. I just say delete, and then I'm going to point to the store users, and I will point to the key. And this here deletes the user from this store, but the store is not imported here, so I need to import it. So I will say import users from, and then I will import it from the data-users.js. So right now, this users is known from there. I point to the key and then I delete it. And since Svelte has to be refreshed, it has to know about the changes. So we say that the users equals users. Once I have done this, we're going to see what happens when I click on this button. We wait 2-3 seconds, actually 3 seconds, and it's gone. But now look what happens in B. B changed to be undo. And this was a bug when I did the test that I didn't really catch at the beginning. Now I'm going to click on B. And then you can see how the undo propagates to C. So to do that, I just, once I have, and don't ask me why, I know you're wondering why this is happening. I cannot really come up with any explanation for now. I haven't given it a lot of thought, but I just do this, undo equals false. So I don't let the undo go to the next element. Maybe it's a bug in Svelte, but this does the trick. So I undo B, no, sorry, I delete B, B is gone, delete C, C is gone. But what happens if I regret the undo? Like right now, nothing really happens, I'm clicking on it. So I need to work on the undo delete user, and that's really easy. Look what I do, undo equals false. And as soon as I set the undo to false, the basket will pop up again. Let's give it a try. I'm going to delete B. Oh no, that was a mistake, I undo. I'm going to delete C. Oh no, that was a mistake, I undo. I wanted to delete actually A. I wait 3 seconds. I want to delete C. I want to add the user D. You can see how it's reactive. I want to add the user A again. I want to add the user F. Now I'm going to do a couple of deletions. I will be deleting B and F. They are gone. All right, guys, please, you help me by liking the video. You help me by putting comments. Obviously, if you subscribe, it's even better. It gives me motivation to keep on creating these tutorials. And if you are a React developer or a Vue developer and you're watching this video, I would love to see if you can build the same thing and put a comment on it, on this video, so I can go and check how you guys do it with different technologies, and I will appreciate that. Thank you for watching this video about Svelte, and hopefully you subscribe to my channel. Thank you, and see you, you see me in my next video.